Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychiatry, became addicted to cocaine. And that same sort of spirit of learning about an illness, an affliction, an addiction, by becoming part of it, having it, as a central problem in your own life. So Freud did become addicted to cocaine, and then he figured, well, I'll beat this addiction, and then I'll be able to help my friends. What people don't realize is that there's crack and cocaine around now in 2010, but in 1910 and 1920, cocaine was everywhere. It was in Coca-Cola, for goodness sakes. So Freud became a cocaine addict deliberately to find out how to beat it, how to overcome it, and then be able to administer.
He must have felt that he was more powerful than the average person.
And he was not. He was not. The cocaine beat him. I mean, I think he eventually had a way of arresting it, or I don't know if he ever overcame it. But when he was right in the throes of craving another snort up the old nose.
Gee, I guess I might have made a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is powerful shit. This stuff really rules your life and everything. Now, I was among my many travels, and being homeless and hitchhiking around the world. Although I haven't been around the world, just to Central America and throughout all these areas up to Alaska, North America, Canada, United States. I wound up in a crack house at one point and got right into the whole thing. Not because I wanted, it was just, there I was in the crack house. Everybody's on crack, everybody's smoking crack. I just joined them. If you can't beat them, join them, or I don't know what kind of mood I was in, but I became a heavy crack addict. But here's the rub. For about 5 or 10 days, so after 5 or 10 days, I just shrugged and walked away. And I tell this story to people who've been crack addicts for decades. They can't beat it, no matter what they do, years and decades. And I tell the story, and I said, well, what's different about you? And I just think that, I don't know, this kind of life I've led or whatever. But here's at least one little point about that. Any smart drug dealer is going to make the drug available for free, whether it's ecstasy or crack or heroin or what they have now, hillbilly heroin, OxyContin, Vicodin, Dilaudid, and all that kind of thing. Any smart dealer is going to give it all the drugs that you want for free. Then when the drug dealer notices that you're hopelessly addicted, then the dealer withdraws the drugs and says, now you got to start paying for it. Well, that happened to me in the crack house. I was there with a group of people. We just arrived. And the drugs were passed out, everything was free, and we could have as much crack night and day, as much as you want, and smoke away and stuff. And there was a primary factor why I shrugged and walked away, never had anything to do with it ever again. This was many years ago. And a secondary factor. The primary factor is, finally, when we were super addicted, the dealer said, okay, from now on you got to pay for it. It's not free anymore. That's the main reason why I shrugged and walked away. First of all, I didn't have any money. The secondary reason is, I don't know what the temperature is, but when you huff and puff on a crack pipe, your lungs are heated up to like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of degrees Celsius. I mean, like you really overinflame your lungs incredibly. And it can be very painful, and you live with it because you want to get the crack high. Well, that really bothered me. I mean, it was very painful, so that's a secondary reason why I shrugged and walked away. And that was many years ago, and I've never had any desire to get involved with it ever again. And it's just a fluke, because like I said, when I talk to people who've been crack addicts for 10, 20, 30 years, well, 30 years is longer than crack. Crack's only been around, I think, for 20 years. Nope, it's been around it's been in Spain and the United States since 1970, and that's 40 years ago. So yeah, it's been around more than 40 years. And people have been addicts for a very long, for most of that period. They just say, how can you shrug and walk away? This stuff gets right into your DNA. It gets into your blood, your brain, your loins, your bones, and it's impossible to shake. But I think any and every addiction is
there's a hurdle. Once you pass the hurdle, once you make up your mind, I'm going over that hurdle and I'm not coming back. Doesn't matter what you're addicted to.
Well, I got it out of all of my addictions. I wasn't heavily addicted to anything, be it booze or crack or heroin or I don't know, marijuana if you can be addicted, but all of the addictions, smoking, drinking, booze, drugs, everything else, I got out of all of that and stopped taking, I haven't taken any of that for many years now, and I did it unintentionally. You see, what I did is I thought, I want to have my cake and eat it too, and this is what I was planning. So what I didn't realize is my mind played a mind game on me. So this is my thinking. Many, many years ago, I thought, I want to be addicted to smokes and booze and drugs, all that I want. But I also have a need to wake up at 6 in the morning, no hangover, sharp as a tack, hit the deck running, and be completely alert in my mind without any kind of residual feelings in the stomach, or lungs, or anywhere. No hangover, nothing. So I thought the way to do that is to have a big, nutritious meal, lots of meats and vegetables and whole wheat bread, and a real nutritious meal. The thing is, I would never touch any booze or smokes or drugs during the working day, but it would be like 5, 6, 7 at night. I would have a little something to eat, and I would imbibe later on. What I did is I would have a very large meal, bring up my blood sugar to a high level, and then I thought this will help moderate and mute the effect of the booze and drugs and smokes, and that will help me be able to hit the deck running at 6 o'clock in the morning, really alert, with no hangover. So more and more experiment with that. So I kept adding more food and vegetables and fruits and salad to my diet late afternoon and early evening, and cutting down more and more on booze and drugs in the evening, so that I would be more and more inclined to hit the deck running at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was just a weird mind game that I played on myself. It was my attempt to have my cake and eat it too, have as many drugs and booze and smokes as I want, but at the same time I'd be able to go without a hangover. Well, what happened after that is that was over a very long period of time, and I want to stress a very long period of time, years. I eventually one day was like crack. I shrugged, I walked away. It was many years ago. I've never touched a smoke or marijuana or drugs or booze or nothing ever again, and I never had any desire to. The most important thing is I've never had a desire to. I've never had a craving. I've never had a relapse.
Well, I can get my friends of mine offer me grass all the time. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
No, I don't need that.
The most important thing is to shrug and
really
not be interested.
I'm not interested.
It's not to crave it and then say, oh no, I can't touch it, because I would never want to be at that point. At that point, I would go back to the drug and back to the alcohol or whatever, and use it until the point that I could go through the process without any feeling of craving, any desire, any kind of slippage, and I could shrug and walk away 10 times out of 10 and 100 times out of 100. Now here's one exception: is the very rare time when I've had a really bad day and everything's falling in on me and stuff, and there's a little inkling in my mind that's saying, well, if you just nibble away at a little bit of drugs, nibble away at a little booze, there won't be any harm. When I just have a thought like that in my mind, I immediately hit the phone and I call a drug and alcohol counselor. Now, you can probably find that by calling Helpline or something, but drug and alcohol counselors are out there and they're accessible by telephone. And what they do is they tell me what I should do to get those little, that's sort of like a pre-craving craving. It's a prefigured, pre-programmed thing in the mind, and that's happened to me very rarely, but when it is, I pay close attention to it, get on the blower to a drug and alcohol counselor, they give me some good advice. And the advice is usually, addictions are energy, and you expend some energy and you get rid of the addiction for that moment. So go outside, don't stay in your place, whatever you're doing, walk around the block 100 times or 10 times or whatever, don't be ridiculous. Walk somewhere, do some physical, go to the gym if you have a gym membership, go out dancing or whatever, just do something to burn up some energy, and you'll come back kind of tired from that physical exercise, whatever it is, and also the addiction will evaporate, that craving. And I've never had a craving, like I said, it's just been a prefigured program through the craving. I don't really know how to describe it. It's sort of a pre-craving craving.
Yeah.
And that's when you got to nip it
You
in the
know
bud.
what's coming if you keep going that way.
Yeah, like you've had this thought, it just pops into the mind, and that's the last residual.
If I had a joint, everything would be okay. That's my thought.
Those little ideas like that about a joint pop into the mind, and that's the last residual evidence that the addiction is still with you in the back of your. Remember, addictions set up housekeeping in the pre-human mind. Okay, this is a really hard place to get at for trying to get rid yourself of addictions. If it was in a neocortex, it would be a lot easier, but it's way back, and it's in a part of the brain that's the proto-human brain. It's the animal brain. And in this animal proto-human brain, pre-human brain, is where addictions set up house. And to get into that part of the brain and get rid of addictions is hard.